The most perfidious way of harming a cause consists of defending it deliberately with faulty arguments. Friedrich Nietzsche. There is a kind of violence that does not scream. It smiles. It waits. It obeys. You wear it every day without realizing. It's stitched into your smile, ironed into your words, painted across your silences. It's the mask of niceness, a socially rewarded form of self-erasure. Beneath it, a quiet desperation festers, the need to be accepted, to be approved, to be good. But Nietzsche warned us, he who despises himself still respects himself as one who despises. To hate your power, to hide it beneath layers of politeness, is not humility, it is submission. And submission, in time, breeds resentment. Let us peel away the layers. The cultural addiction to being liked from childhood, you were trained in a subtle dance. Smile, please, apologize. Don't be too loud, don't be too proud, don't upset anyone. Or worse, make someone uncomfortable. You learned quickly that being nice was currency. It bought safety, praise, validation. But the cost? Your edge, your voice, your instinct to rebel against falsehood. Nice people are rarely remembered because they never leave a scar on the world. They smooth over cracks in the system rather than confront them. They keep the peace, even when the peace is a lie. Modern culture doesn't celebrate truth. It celebrates likability. But Nietzsche understood, to be liked by the herd is often to betray what is true within you. The more you are liked by everyone, the less you are known by yourself. How niceness disguises fear and self-erasure. Under the banner of kindness, many commit quiet acts of cowardice. You say yes when your whole being screams no. You laugh at jokes that belittle you. You nod in meetings while your soul whispers protests. Why? Because to assert yourself, to disagree, to push back, to hold your ground is dangerous. It risks disapproval. It risks loneliness. It risks being seen for who you are. Niceness is a disguise worn not for others, but against oneself. It is fear dressed as virtue. You become the gentle executioner of your own authenticity. Nietzsche saw this clearly in the moral decay of his time. The so-called virtues of meekness, humility, and niceness were not signs of inner strength, but of psychological decay, strategies of survival in a world built by the weak for the weak. The silent violence of suppressing your will. Imagine a lion who forgets he's a lion, who bows before sheep, who apologizes for his roar, who asks permission to hunt. This is what happens when you suppress your will to power in the name of being nice. It's a kind of self-imposed exile. Your instincts are not wrong. Your anger, your boundaries, your ambitions, they are sacred signals of life force. To suppress them is not peace. It is spiritual suicide. Every time you bite your tongue, every time you perform instead of speak truth, a fracture forms in your psyche. Over time, that fracture becomes a chasm, and in that chasm, resentment grows. Nietzsche called this ressentiment, a deep, soul-corroding hatred that festers when one feels powerless but cannot admit it. And so you smile, and you simmer, and you rot inside. When politeness becomes a prison, there is nothing wrong with being kind, but kindness that is compulsive, that is done out of fear rather than strength, becomes a prison. You become addicted to keeping the peace. You fear being called rude, harsh, arrogant. You let people cross your boundaries because you don't want to seem difficult. But what is more difficult than betraying yourself every day? Nietzsche believed that the authentic human, the Übermensch, the overman, is not polite, but powerful, not agreeable, but true, not socially acceptable, but existentially free. To live behind the mask of niceness is to live in chains decorated with ribbons. It may look beautiful, but it is still bondage. And so, here you are, a creature built for fire, numbed into politeness. You have learned to shrink so others feel comfortable, but Nietzsche beckons you to wake up, not with anger, but with clarity. To peel off the mask, even if it bleeds. To speak, even if your voice trembles. To live, even if it offends. Because in the end, the world doesn't need more nice people. It needs more real ones. Life itself is will to power. Self-preservation is only one of the indirect and most frequent results. Friedrich Nietzsche. There is a force in you, primal, ancient, and undeniable. You feel it stir in moments of truth, when your spine straightens, your eyes sharpen, and your voice ceases to tremble. That force is not rage, it is not ego, it is not cruelty, it is the will to power, the invisible thread that binds every act of creation, transcendence and defiance against decay. You have been taught to fear it, but today you remember what the will to power truly means. Forget everything they told you. Nietzsche's will to power is not about domination over others. It is not about tyrants or violence. That is a child's misunderstanding. It is the inner command to rise, not above others, but above your former self. It is the voice that whispers grow when comfort calls your name. It is the instinct to become more than what you were yesterday, to reshape your life, not by permission, but by passion. The will to power is not about control. It is about expression. It is the artist who dares to create, the thinker who dares to dissent, the wanderer who dares to be alone. It is the refusal to decay quietly, the danger of denying one's inner force. Every time you say, "I'm just being nice," and when you mean "I'm afraid," you deny your will to power. Every time you choose silence over truth, convenience over authenticity, harmony over reality, you strangle it. And what happens to a force denied? It doesn't vanish. It mutates into depression, into bitterness, into anxiety and despair. A life without upward movement becomes a slow spiritual suffocation. Nietzsche warned us, when you chain your instincts, when you declaw your soul in the name of morality, you do not become better, you become sicker. The modern world is full of such sickness. Quiet, smiling faces hiding dead eyes, dead dreams, dead fire. How goodness was redefined by the weak. Here lies the great inversion, the moral con. Once, strength was good, power was divine, vitality was celebrated, but those who were weak, in body, in spirit, in soul, could not rise. So they rewrote the rules. Nietzsche called it the slave revolt in morality. The weak redefined goodness to favor themselves. Meekness became virtue, obedience became wisdom, suffering became holy, and power became evil. This was not a revelation from God. It was psychological revenge. They could not defeat the strong, so they condemned them. They could not climb the mountain, so they cursed it, and we swallowed it whole. The birth of herd morality. Once morality was redefined, a new God emerged, the herd, the collective, the many, the majority, the safe, the average. To be accepted by the herd, you must be predictable, gentle, unoffensive. You must never question the sacred laws of comfort and conformity. So like cattle, people began to moo in unison, rewarding each other for self-denial, punishing those who dared to rise, to stand apart, to speak too boldly. Nietzsche saw this herd morality as the enemy of human greatness. It was not evil in the traditional sense. It was worse. It was mediocre, and mediocrity, when worshipped, kills faster than any tyrant. It makes a person forget they were born to create, not comply. And so we arrive at the edge. The will to power, this flame inside you, has not died. It waits. It waits for you to break the pact with weakness, to unlearn the false humility that cloaks your shame, to stop apologizing for your existence. You are not here to be good in their eyes. You are here to become true in your own. That is the beginning of power, not over others, but over the lies you've swallowed. And that is the beginning of freedom. He who fights with monsters should be careful, lest he thereby become a monster. Friedrich Nietzsche. Not all power is loud. Not all manipulation is cruel. Some power wears soft eyes. It offers help, gives compliments, remembers birthdays. But beneath the surface, a strategy, a game, a quiet contract of control. You thought the dangerous ones were those who yelled, who demanded, who pushed. But some of the most dangerous people smile. And when you try to resist them, they call you ungrateful. Let's unmask the shadows, the manipulative side of niceness. There is a way to control others without raising your voice. You become indispensable. You overgive. You make others rely on your kindness. Then when they try to step away, you bleed guilt into their minds. You say, after all I've done for you, you never needed a throne to rule. You just needed to be the one who sacrificed more. This is the hidden side of niceness, not always innocent, not always weak. Sometimes it is a method of manipulation so subtle, even the one doing it doesn't know they are. But Nietzsche did. He saw that morality, as used by the weak, became a weapon, not of strength but of shame. How passive people enforce conformity. They don't scream, they don't fight, they whisper, they give you that look when you speak too boldly. They flinch when you say something controversial. They change the subject when truth makes the room tremble. They are the guardians of the status quo, not by force, but by pressure. You feel it, the invisible tension when you begin to say what others won't. You watch them pull away, not physically, but energetically, a silent punishment for your deviation. Nietzsche understood this herd psychology. It is not a law enforced by police, but by politeness, not by guns, but by glances. And over time, you learn to censor yourself, not because it's wrong, but because it's uncomfortable for them. Moral language as a weapon of control. Watch how people use words like selfish, arrogant, or rude. Often these are not reflections of truth, but chains. Social leashes to pull you back into place. You say what you think, they call you harsh. You defend your time, they call you cold. You refuse to serve their needs, and suddenly you're the villain. Nietzsche saw morality as a tool, not of the gods, but of the powerless, to control those with strength, vitality, or clarity. He who cannot climb the mountain curses the one who does. He who cannot speak truth poisons the one who dares. And they call it morality. Hidden resentment behind the smile. Resentment is not loud. It smiles at you while you speak, but it hopes you fail. It celebrates your downfall in private. It cannot handle your rising because it exposes its own stillness. Nice people, when infected by resentment, do not confront you. They sabotage you passively. They give bad advice masked as concern. They support you publicly, but roll their eyes in secret. Why? Because your light burns their shadow. Because your clarity offends their confusion. Nietzsche knew the deepest hatreds are not born in rage, but in impotence. And when that impotence cannot be admitted, it becomes disguised as virtue. So now you see the game. Niceness is not always kind. Weakness is not always harmless. The powerless, when resentful, become dangerous, not with fists, but with smiles, with gossip, with subtle sabotage. And unless you learn to see power in its shadow form, you will be vulnerable to it forever. Do not hate the herd. Do not even fight it. Simply transcend it. Because once you see the invisible strings, you can no longer be controlled by them. And once you stop needing their approval, their power over you ends. The man of knowledge must be able not only to love his enemies, but also to hate his friends. Friedrich Nietzsche, you were not born to be harmless. There was a time when your presence made others pause, not because you were cruel, but because you were clear. You knew what you wanted. You said what needed to be said. You were fire, not foam. But the world does not like people who cannot be controlled. So it trained you. With guilt, shame, rejection, you became softer, gentler, more digestible, and now you wonder why your life feels smaller than your soul. It is time to become dangerous again. Why you must reclaim your edge. Danger does not mean destruction, it means capacity. A dangerous person is not one who harms, it is one who can but chooses not to. That can is everything. It is the root of confidence. It is the core of presence. It is why you walk into a room and feel unapologetically real. Your edge is your boundary. Your sharpness is your clarity. When you dull it for others, you bleed. The world needs people who can cut through the fog, not to wound, but to awaken. If you are never capable of saying no, of walking away, of standing firm, then your yes means nothing. You are not kind. You are compliant. And Nietzsche would ask, at what cost? Assertiveness versus aggression, the real difference. There is a fear, especially in the nice, that any display of strength is violence, that to be firm is to be a bully, that to assert is to offend. This is the residue of herd morality, a psychological trap. Aggression says, I win, you lose. Assertiveness says, I exist, and that difference matters. To be assertive is not to dominate others. It is to no longer abandon yourself. It is to no longer apologize for your preferences, your values, your limits. You are not a storm, but neither are you a doormat. You are a mountain, and mountains do not move when asked politely. Building inner strength without apology. You don't need to become louder. You need to become heavier. Inner strength is not about volume, but about gravity. It's the way your words land, the way your silence holds weight, the way your presence speaks before you do. This strength is built not through conquest but through confrontation with your own fear, your own softness, your own longing to be liked. Nietzsche believed that true strength comes from going into the abyss and coming back with your own law, not the law of society, not the law of religion, your law. This kind of power doesn't shout, it radiates, and when you have it, you no longer need to defend yourself. Your being is defense enough, saying no as a sacred act of self-respect. There is a moment, subtle, quiet, where your entire life pivots. You say no. You say no to the wrong invitation, to the draining friend, to the fake smile, to the endless giving that leaves you empty, and that no, not loud, not cruel, but clear, is a holy act. It is the reclaiming of self. It is the recognition that your time, your energy, your presence are not infinite. They are offerings, not obligations. Every yes you give without desire is a small betrayal, a leak in your soul. And one day, you look in the mirror and see someone useful, but not alive. Nietzsche's wisdom cuts here. He would rather you be feared than forgotten, not to harm, but to matter. You are not here to be nice. You are here to be whole, and sometimes wholeness is sharp. So rise, not as a brute, but as a sovereign. Let your presence unsettle those who have grown too comfortable with your silence. Let your truth offend the liars and liberate the honest. Let your boundaries teach others that you are not an object, not a servant, not a machine of endless giving. You are a force, and when you stop fearing your power, the world must face it. What is great in man is that he is a bridge and not a goal. Friedrich Nietzsche. There is no finish line. There is only the movement, away from imitation toward creation, away from borrowed virtue toward lived truth, away from niceness toward authenticity. This path is not for the many. It is lonely, but it is real. It is the path of the overman, the one who lives not to please, but to become, living beyond approval and rejection. Do you feel it? That itch beneath every decision? The need to be seen, to be affirmed, to be loved. Most lives are lived in reaction. We chase what earns praise and avoid what risks judgment. But Nietzsche invites you to a wild freedom, a life that no longer dances for applause. Imagine acting not from fear of rejection, but from the fullness of who you are, speaking because it is true, not because it will be liked, leaving because it is time, not because you were pushed. Approval and rejection are just two sides of the same leash, and the overman, he has no collar. Creating values rooted in truth, not fear. You have outgrown the moral systems of your past, the inherited shoulds, the fear-based rights and wrongs, the tired maps of virtue written by frightened hands. They no longer fit your fire. Now you must create, not chaos, not rebellion for its own sake, but values, forged in solitude, shaped in suffering, tested in action. Nietzsche did not want destruction. He wanted a revaluation of all values, a renaissance of the soul. You are the artist now, of your ethics, of your life, of your being. Paint with bold colors, carve your commandments into stone, and let your life be the proof. Embracing solitude to awaken power. You cannot become yourself in a crowd. The noise of others drowns the voice of your becoming. The overman walks alone, not because he is antisocial, but because he is becoming something the world has never seen. Solitude is not loneliness. It is communion with the self unfiltered. It is where you wrestle angels and demons, where you die to falsehoods and rise reborn. Nietzsche himself lived in the mountains, away from society, not to escape it, but to become clear, to see, to think, to feel without interruption. If you fear being alone, you have not yet met your true self. And that self waits in the silence. The silent revolution of authenticity, call to action. So now, here you are, not fixed, not complete, but awake. You are not nice, you are not cruel, you are not obedient, you are not rebellious, you are real, and that is your revolution. You will walk into rooms and no longer shrink. You will speak with weight. You will say no when it matters, yes when it's true. You will leave when staying means death of the soul. You will upset the herd, not with cruelty but with presence, and they will not understand you. Good. You were never here to be understood. You were here to transcend. So go, unlearn their fear, burn their scripts. Write your own myth in blood and silence and defiant joy, because the world does not need more agreeable people. It needs more overmen. You've worn the mask long enough. Now is the time to step beyond the myths they handed you, to stop asking for permission to be what you already are: powerful, whole, unapologetically alive. If this voice stirred something in you, that ancient fire, that buried instinct, then don't let it fade. Follow the trail, go deeper. Subscribe not to me, to yourself, your real self, the one that whispers when the world gets quiet. There are more truths ahead, more masks to tear, more power to reclaim. And if you dare, if you truly dare to walk with me, we are building something dangerous here, something real.